Welcome. This is Bodger1234 of Airwolf Corporation in the game EVE Online. And today I'm going to talk about a couple fundamental skills that newbies need to learn. Tackling, bumping, and speed tanking. The tackling and bumping are primarily going to be used in fleet operations. Speed tanking is useful for keeping you alive in general situations. So let's go ahead and talk about what I'm flying right now. Let me just click this up. Okay, I'm flying Merlin, which is a Tech 1 Caldari frigate. It's very fast. You could use any, like Galant, Amar, Caldari, um, whatever the other one is, and you could put any of those frigates together. The big thing you need to do speed tanking is put speed on. So in this case, I put on a massive for this frigate, a massive size micro warp drive. Micro warp drives tend to go faster than afterburners. And in this particular case, I've got a max velocity of 2,235 meters per second, 2.2 kilometers per second. That is very fast, and it's about the fastest thing you're going to get, short of, you know, really advanced ships. So this is what speed tanking is about, speed. So let's close that. So let's talk about why you want to do speed tanking. Because frigates and destroyers are awesome ships. They're fast. They can get you someplace very quickly. They can get you out of trouble very quickly. But in the process, they have, you know, paper thin armor, paper thin shields, and it's just not worth, in my opinion, to try to do shield tanking or armor tanking or even hull tanking on them, because you're going to take just a few hits and you're going to get blown away if they actually can put a hit on you. So I typically don't put tanking on a frigate or destroyer, but I will do speed tanking, which means I put on a fast micro warp drive or a fast afterburner so that I can go fast. So in the game, EVE Online, the game mechanic allows for it to be very difficult for, say, a cruiser, battle cruiser, battleship, whatever, to hit a fast-moving object. The battleship can put on modules and stuff to make that easier to happen, but it still is more difficult to hit a fast-moving target. And if it does hit, it's not likely to hit with the full capabilities of the weapon. So more than likely you will survive. So speed tanking is a survival skill, and it is critical. You have to learn how to do this, especially until you get to like the battle cruiser level or whatever. But right now, let's talk about what it is. It's just basically turning on your micro warp drive and orbiting at um, your optimum weapon range. So I'm going to select. I have two opponents here. They're actually two of my alternates. One is Cletus, one is Bodger. Cletus is flying a Caracal, which is a cruiser. Bodger is flying a Teyra, which is a hauler. You're actually seeing the hauler right there. Let's go look at the cruiser. Okay, if you go look into it, you can see this is the cruiser. Stuff like that. And I'm going to speed tank the Caracal because the cruiser can hit me. The Teyra, the hauler, can't do any damage to me, but the cruiser can. So I need to speed tank from him. So the procedure for speed tanking is very simple, but you have to do it quick. You select your target, you put the lock on, you hit approach, you hit your micro warp drive, you then come back up here, say orbit at, say, 5,000 meters. I was actually pretty close, so it got in pretty quick. My current speed is vacillating here, but it'll stabilize here, probably 1,200 to 1,500. And so I'm just circling this ship at what, 1,600 meters per second, making it very difficult for the Caracal to hit me. And this is what's defending me. So if I were in a combat here, I could stay alive, survive, until my fleet can come on to grid and shoot this guy and kill him. Typically, I won't have the strength to hit him, but if you do, you'll have a better chance of survival under that circumstance. So, what is? Let's stop this. I'm going to pull back out. I'm going to say, let's get back out to, say, 10 kilometers. Actually, I'll turn the board right back on. I'm going to get back out. Okay, I'm out there pretty much, almost there. Yeah, I'm about 10 kilometers right now. Okay, excellent. So let's talk about, we're going to talk about tackling now. And before I do, I need to talk about safety. I'm currently in HiSec right now. I'm in a 0.8 system, which is pretty high sec. So Concord and or EDMCOM is very quickly to respond and protect whoever I'm attacking. And if I put an offensive module on to anybody, friend or foe, they will kill me or try to kill me. More than likely they'll kill me. I'm just a little I'm in a little Merlin, so they would kill me. So that's not something I typically want to do. Now you could set this up to do it. You would go look at this little circly thing with a green dot on it. It's currently set to safety is enabled, which means basically I'm not allowed to shoot anybody other than I can shoot NPCs. I can't shoot real players. Now, I could turn the safety off. There's a couple settings here. I highly recommend you don't, because I actually tested this earlier before, and my little Merlin turned on the warp scrambler on my Caracal, and I was destroyed in like 15 seconds. Concord came out, blew me out of space, and it's not something I recommend. I had suspect status on for a while. I was in a capsule, but I had suspect on for a while. And I actually lost in the standing with Concord, so that was not a good thing. I highly recommend you do not do that. If you wanted to practice this, where you actually turn an offensive module on to friend or foe without consequence, you can go down to low sec. You can go down to null sec, and you can go into wormhole space. Let's go over each one. Low sec will allow you to do it. Concord will not interfere. But you will get suspect status, which means you have to, it has a timer on, and after, I don't know, is it a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is, then the suspect status goes away. You probably lose standing with Concord, but they won't try and shoot you. If you go down to null sec, you, again, can do the offensive module, but you will not get, Concord won't care, EdenCom won't care. You will not get suspect status. And if you're in a wormhole, same thing as nullsec. Concord won't care, EdenCom won't care, and you won't get suspect status. But in all three cases, low sec, nullsec, and wormhole space, you are vulnerable to being attacked by third parties. While you're there, you're just meat for the grinder. So make sure you're in a fleet, someone's working security, so you can do your testing with security on. Again, work with your fleet commander, but don't do this on your own in those places without first talking to your fleet commander. Okay, so safety concerns aside, so let's talk about what tackling is. Tackling is essentially speed tanking, followed by activating a stasis webifier and a warp scrambler at ranges that they're effective. Like this warp scrambler is only effective at 7,500 meters or less, and the warp stasis webifier is only effective at 10 kilometers. So if you get in there within 7,500 kilometers, activate those, very likely you will have this Caracal tackled. There are reasons and ways that the Caracal can avoid being tackled even if you activate those modules, and we will discuss that a little bit further on. But right now, let's go ahead and attempt to tackle. So I'm going to unselect. It's the caracal right there. So just like in speed tanking, remember I do speed tanking first, followed by the tackle. So I select my guy, I select target, I hit approach, and I want to orbit at 5,000. I then turn on my micro warp drive, and I should be approaching very quickly. My speed is building, and I'm within target range of the stasis web of fire, and I activated them. If I were in a real scenario, this guy will be nailed. He just went out beyond 7,500, so I did temporarily lose things. Let's double check this and make sure it's set for 5. I got it now at 5. It should keep me under 7,500. Give it some time. All right, it's keeping me outside of 7,500, and that's the critical one, warp scrambler. So you have to be careful. You might even want to pick 2,500 meters. So let's do that. Let's orbit at 2,500 meters. Remember, I got a big old warp drive or micro warp drive on here, so he is pushing me out because I'm constantly missing. I'm constantly going fast, but the speed tanking, the 1,600 meters per second, is keeping me alive while I'm trying to tackle this guy. So again, if I activated him within range, more than likely I have this guy tackled. And tackling means that he is pretty much held in place. He cannot warp away. The stasis web of fire will slow him down so he can't, turn on his micro warp drive and fly away quickly because it'll reduce his speed. And so while that's all going on, your fleet is trying to blow him out of space because they've got the high damage weapons. You only got little pea shooters, and so you're scratching in his paint. But you can go ahead and activate your weapons and shoot the guy, but it's really your fleet that's going to destroy him. So that's basically tackling. It's not a difficult concept. I'm going to shut the system down, unselect the caracal. Okay, I'm at 23 kilometers from the Terror, which is a hauler. Haulers are slow, and sometimes I can't tackle. Mainly could be because of scramble resistance. It could be for other reasons. I may not even have a warp scrambler or warp disruptor equipped, but I need to stop this guy from getting away. There's other ways to do it. And it's all based on what's called align time. So let me go ahead and bring up this Terra. Go to hulls and fits. Let's say Terra, which is a hauler. Big hauler here. This is Bodger's primary configuration for his Terras. I've got it built for extra cargo, and I've got 33,000 cubic meters inside my Terra, so I can haul bunches and bunches of stuff. But the statistic I want to point you to is called align time. And in this particular case, with my current configuration on this ship, my align time is 13.37 seconds. That's an eternity if you're the driver and somebody's bearing down on your guns. But that's the game and the way it works. So when I go to try to start a warp, I say I'm going to go warp to a gate or warp to a planet or station or whatever. First thing it does is it starts aligning towards that object. And in this particular case, that alignment will take 13.37 seconds. While it's aligning, it's also gaining speed. So once it's fully aligned and has 3/4 of maximum speed, it then goes to warp. Well, it's going to take a minimum of 13.37 seconds, perhaps a little longer because it needs to get to 3/4 of warp speed, or 3/4 of max speed. Go to warp. So I have a little bit of time. So we're going to take advantage of that. This is not going to work on a frigate. It may not even work on a cruiser. But we're going to go ahead and demonstrate this process on this Terra because it has a 13.37 second align time. So it's going to be similar to doing speed tanking, but It's going to be different in the fact that you're, instead of orbiting, you're going to try and hit that guy at full speed. So I'm going to go ahead and target him. I hit approach, get my micro warp drive on. I start flying towards him. Where am I? Oh, here I am, right there. Okay, I'm going in. I'm going in for the kill. I'm going in for the kill. So, boom! The moment I hit him like that, his align time goes and starts all over again. So I want to keep repeating this. So I'm going to go ahead, keep at range 5,000 meters. So I start flying away. So now I'm going to hit approach again, and I'm going to try and hit him again. Boom, I hit him again. So let's put him back at range 5,000. He flies away. Notice every time I hit, I do change angles, which is good. So now I'm going to hit approach. And I'm going to hit him again. Now, again, I told you that the align time was 13.3 seconds or whatever it was. And as an individual ship, I probably will not be able to effectively get repeated bumps on him. So typically, if you're doing bumping, you would want to have a team of bumpers, tacklers in bumper mode, doing the bumper process. So you go in, you hit him, you reset, try and hit him again. But first, you hit him, you start your reset, then another tackler comes in and hits him. He starts his reset. Then you've already reset, you hit him again. So you start a little ballet where you keep trying to bump him and prevent him from going to warp. While this is going on, your fleet has targeted him and is throwing everything they got at him, hopefully to destroy them. You, again, will not likely be able to scratch his paint, but you can at least keep him from warping away, and that's part of a tackle. Your job as a tackler is to keep him from warping away. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the warp disruptor, but it does mean you keep him from warp. So that's an alternative technique, something that you might want to use in your operations. So there's more to what I'm going on with this here, and I'm going to go ahead and discuss this. Let's go ahead and bring up the fitter, and I'm going to switch to a Caracal simply because it's just easy to set up. Bring him up in an empty configuration, and we're going to go over these 6 or 7 modules, whatever they are. So let's go over the stasis webifier first. Okay, not there. Their hardware now. So I say cancel stasis webifier 1. I'm going to go ahead and put him down here. Oh, wrong location. These are mid module. Sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show information on the stasis webifier. Reduces the maximum speed of the ship by employing micro energy streams which effectively entangle the target temporarily, thereby slowing it down. Let's go look at the attributes. The primary attribute you want to look at is this: maximum velocity bonus, a minus 50%. So we're slowing him down by 50%. Because his tactic, once your disruptor becomes active and he can no longer warp, what he wants to do is get out of range of your warp disruptor or your warp scrambler. And so he will hit his afterburner, or he'll hit his micro warp drive and try to get away. So you're slowing him down from being able to do that by using your stasis webifier. So that's a stasis webifier 1. Let's look at a stasis webifier 2. Oh, and the range on that webifier here, I forgot to show that to you. The range on that is 10 kilometers. So let's put a stasis webifier 2 in there. His range is also 10 kilometers. That doesn't change. But let's go look here. His maximum velocity bonus is minus 60%. So it's a little more effective It may have other attributes here listed that may interest you. You have to be much more skilled to use it, but it's definitely an option for you if you are skilled enough to do that. So let's go to the next module, the Warp Disruptor. Okay, Warp Disruptor 1. Oops, these modules here. Okay, so his effective range is 20 kilometers. Show info. And his description says, disrupts the target ship's navigation computer, which prevents it from warping. Attributes, and these are critical. The primary thing is the optimum range, which is 20 kilometers, and the warp scramble strength. Notice its strength is 1. It's a game of warp scramble strength of positive and negative values. If the warp scramble strength adds up to 0 between the ship and the modules it has versus your ship and the modules you have, he can warp away if it's 0. If it's above 0, then he cannot warp away. So that's a warp disruptor 1, and it has a warp scramble strength of 1 and a range of 20. Let's put a disruptor 2 on there. And notice his range is 24 kilometers. And show info. And his attribute is warp scramble strength is 1. So there's no difference between a warp scramble 1 and a 2 in regards to warp scramble strength, but it does give you a better range. So let's do that. Let's go to the warp scrambler. It's warp scrambler 1. Is also a bottom module or mid module. So his range is 7,500. That is a close range weapon. You got to keep that in mind. So his range is 7,500, but his warp scramble strength is 2. So it's twice as strong as the warp disruptor, but you have to activate it much closer. So that is a disadvantage. But there's another advantage. So let's read the description. Disrupts the target ship's navigation computer, disabling warping, very much like the warp disruptor. Jumping through a gate, micro warp drives, and micro jump drives. You're not likely to see a micro jump drive as a newbie, but you will see micro warp drives. And there's 2 different modules. There's the micro warp drive and the afterburner, and they do roughly the same thing. Micro warp drives are faster, but if they have a scrambler on you, you can't use your micro warp drive. So that is a big advantage for using a warp scrambler over a disruptor. You have to consider your disadvantages. Again, the attribute is warp scramble strength of 2. So it's twice as strong as the disruptor. So if I put a level 2 one in there, its range is 9,000, so it's a little further than the other one, but its warp scramble strength is also 2. So it's just, all it really offers you is a slight better distance. Some of these other stats may be better too, but that's what you need to consider. So that's one side of the equation. Let's look at the other side of the equation. We talked about bumping, and bumping is taking advantage of align time, or talking about align time. Well, let's talk about align time. I'm going to first talk about nanofiber structures. Nanofiber structures. Here, nanofiber internal structure 1. And I'm going to put 1 in each. Oh, no, let me undo that first. Notice the align time for this Caracal is 5.94 seconds, which is pretty good. But let's suppose I wanted it to go faster. So I'm going to put the nanofiber internal structure on, and it dropped it from 5.94 to 5.16. I'll do it again. It's now 4.58, 4.24, and finally 4.09. That's awesome. So we took almost 2 seconds off. Not quite, but almost. So if you're dealing with bumping or other things, that's actually a big advantage to get your butt out of trouble. If we look at the nanofiber structure 2, remember it was just slightly over 4 when he was finished. This will bring it into the 3s. Yeah, the 2s. it gets you down to 3.75. It's more than 2 seconds savings in align time. That's one structure that'll help you. The other is the internal stabilizers. Let's go talk about internal stabilizers. Uh, Inertial stabilizers, excuse me. Inertial stabilizer 1, where again we start with 5.94 seconds. I put the first one in, it's 4.94, that takes a whole second off. And then 4.22, 3.82, and finally 3.64. That's excellent. It takes the level ones, or the tech ones, will take off more than 2 seconds, at least on the Caracat. So let's put in the level 2s. And it brings it down to 3.28. Absolutely excellent. So that helps you deal with align time. The other thing we want to talk about is called the warp core stabilizer. Okay, it goes in the low slot. Let's go look at the show info. It basically says, when installed, this unit attempts to compensate for fluctuations and disruptions of the ship's warp core. It helps deal with warp scramblers and warp disruptors. So what you got to look here is the warp scramble strength is -2. Remember, the warp disruptor was a +1, and the warp scrambler was a +2. So this will compensate completely with the warp scrambler. And as a result, you can warp away because the two will cancel each other out. You're at warp scramble strength of 0, and you can warp away. Now that is the warp scramble strength. There's other attributes you may want to consider. The distance, actually it's not relevant to this, but let's go look at the warp core stabilizer 2. Look at its stats. It still has a warp scramble strength of -2, but there may be other stats here that makes it more attractive to you. So that is, the fundamentals of tackling, bumping, speed tanking, and counter tackling. Again, this is Bodger 1234 of Airwolf. Have a nice day.